Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Invisible Disabilities Association's first ever Healthy Humor Ideas show. IDEA stands for Invisible Disabilities Education Awareness Support. My name is Wayne Cannell, and I founded the Invisible Disabilities Association a long time ago. And I will be your host today as we explore healthy humor ideas with top humor experts from the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor, or AATH. So I want to welcome today Karyn Buxman and Sue Stevenson, Joyce Saltman, and Roberta Gold. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with you, Karyn. Share with us a little bit about your background and why humor has played such a defining role in your life.
You bet, Wayne. And it's so good to see you. Thank you for having us. This is something that I stumbled upon back while I was actively nursing and teaching nursing. Was asked to do a research project for my master's thesis and stumbled upon this small article about a nurse researcher, Vera Robinson, who had studied humor for her dissertation. And I was blown away that you could actually study humor. And my advisors were not really happy about it at the time, but they did acquiesce and finally decided that maybe this was worthy. And after that, they were just blown away because the benefits that I stumbled upon, and people were so interested in what I was learning that they wanted to be able to hear my findings. And so I started speaking. And since then, I've written 9 books. The Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor is a big part of my journey, as was the Journal of Nursing Jocularity. And, we just have people on every continent except Antarctica that we have shared the power of humor with. Apparently, Antarctica doesn't have a great sense of humor, but Sue would know more about that than I do because she's actually been to Antarctica.
Well, I can tell you, Karyn, I so appreciate you, and I know we've been longtime friends of Invisible Disabilities, and we have lots of great humor resources you provide for us, especially on our Healthy Humor Ideas page, right? Which we're really excited. It's at healthyhumor.lol. It's how you find it. So thank you so much, Karyn. That's amazing. So Sue, speaking of Sue Stevenson, Sue, tell us about a little bit about your background. What you've been doing all these years, and why humor's played a defining role in your life.
Well, thank you, Wayne. I'm so excited to have joined tonight on Healthy Humor Ideas. And yes, I am calling in from above Antarctica. I decided that the signal was too poor down on land, so I've come way above Earth to beam my thoughts into you directly. Actually, I am in the mountains. I'm in Montreux, Switzerland. So it does feel like we are at the top of the world. Humor did not play a role as a child growing up. I came from a very conservative, stoic, formal Scottish farmer family. And we really didn't have much humor at all. And I didn't even know the value of humor. We didn't watch much TV humor. I really didn't focus on humor. And it was a very long time before I stumbled on humor. And I've got a lot of things that happened to me during my life that humor has made such a big difference. But Karyn Buxman is a key to my entry into the humor world. And when I found AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, it really just took off. I studied Humor Academy, which is a 3-year program, which was just amazing. And through Humor Academy, I really began to learn the theory, and then I began to practice, and then I began writing, and then I learned about how you push through with humor. And that became a thing about how people who are struggling or who are have something they're facing, whether it's chemo or infusions or really high stress job or family issues or poverty, what are the things that you could do to try to push through humor? And I'll just pause for there.
Oh, that's awesome, Sue. I so appreciate it. And, yeah, we're excited for you to be part of this too. And I know that Visible Disabilities is one of your passions too, being on our board right now. We're really excited about that. So I want to go to so Joyce, tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit, and why it's played such a defining role in your life.
Well, I grew up not in a family like Sue, and I am really thrilled to be part of our panel today. I grew up in a Jewish family where people were always laughing. but my sister and brother were 15 and a half and 11 and a half when I was born. So when they would come home for dates and I was just a little kid supposed to be in bed, I would hear them laughing in the other room. And when I would ask my sister when she came into the bedroom, what were you laughing about? She'd say, when you're older, I'll tell you. And I made a decision then that I never wanted to be out of a group that was laughing. I wanted to be in every group that was laughing. And as I got older, I recognized that I wasn't beautiful and I wasn't brilliant, but I was funny. So I could always have people around me who'd be laughing, which has helped tremendously. And in my professional life, I have been a teacher of special education my whole adult life since 1965. And there was no question but that all the other teachers had problems with the kids that I had in my classes, and I never had problems with these kids because I brought a lot of humor into the class. I brought a lot of techniques into when I taught in the university. I taught not only special ed teachers, but I taught regular teachers the enhancement of learning through humor, believing definitely that if we can reach the kids to a level that they can laugh and feel comfortable and not feel challenged by other people's views of them, that no matter what their problems were, that they would somehow get past it. And so far it's been working. I turned 80 in July and it still works.
No, that's awesome, Joyce. You know, I think about it with invisible disabilities. In fact, I even remember this. We used to have we first started our galas back in 2008, and we'd have these galas, and we'd have like a keynote speaker come in and do our gala, and I had the photographer after one of them say, "Wayne, it's so sad and depressing. It's about disabilities." And I thought, well, something's wrong here. We need to understand that that's part of the issue. Is disabilities can be serious in some sense, how it impacts your life, but understanding how humor can play into it and how life is not, talk about rejoicing in the midst of suffering even, right? It's like, why would you do that? Well, because that's what gives you the ability to endure it and to be part of it and to make it through it. So that's awesome, Joyce. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are so been blessed by you bringing that to the classroom. I mean, I can imagine a classroom where they're laughing in one and the other one they're not, and you're like, well, that's the one I want to be in.
Right.
Awesome. Well, so Roberta, tell us about your journey and a little bit of your background and why humor is part of what you're about.
Wow, where do I start? When hasn't there been humor? I was raised in a family that utilized a lot of humor, but we had illness too. So my dad was the starter of a genetically dominantly hereditary rare disease, and he was sick for a great many years. He lived a lot longer than he was supposed to, but we used a lot of humor with him. In fact, when he was in the hospital, I would bring a clown on a spring and hang it with his IV pole and make it laugh. And the nurses would come in and say, "Oh my gosh, the patient next door is making me crazy. Make that laugh so I can feel better." And I became a recreation therapist. And as I was working with occupational therapists, and we had a craft clinic, and the patients would come through the craft clinic, and probably one of the most popular crafts they would do would be a stuffed animal, and they'd work on the head and they'd put it down and they'd work on the body. And me being who I am, because I don't change whether I'm at work or at home, I'm just silly, or some people call me wacky. I would pick up the head and I would go, "Hi, how are you?" And I'd make the head talk. And they'd look at me like, "Really? I'm in here and you're not?" And we'd laugh together. And then later that day or that week, they'd stop me in the hallway and they'd say, "Roberta, can I talk to you? I don't feel comfortable talking to my doctor." And I realized the power of humor and laughter made us equal. I wasn't the therapist and they weren't the patient. At that moment, we were exactly the same. And I started researching it. I had a supervisor that encouraged me, and I said, "I want to start a class on humor." He goes, "Fine, go research it." I saw Norman Cousins right before he passed away, probably. I met a number of really great people in the field back then. I went to a conference with Jim Pelly and some other people. And I started a group called Brighten Up for the patients. And it worked. And we talked about utilizing humor when they go home, utilizing it in the hospital. And I started to be asked to talk about it and write about it. And I started Laughter for the Health of It in 1983. And I found it was the American Association of Therapeutic Humor at that time. And I was supposed to meet Karyn Buxman in Paris, but I was 8.5 months pregnant and I couldn't go. But I've been with AATH ever since, and I am proud to be the current president of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. And I am with wonderful, incredible people that just are amazing.
Well, I had an opportunity to go to AATH to their annual summit, and I know there's one coming up soon here, out here in Denver, Colorado in April. And real excited about that. In 2010, got an opportunity to go to the one out in California. Man, I never laughed so hard in my life in 4 days, but I made so many amazing connections with people. And that, it's one of the things that really learned about the whole issue of connection, right? How humor really brings that connection. You mentioned all these different people that come together, that humor flattens out that. It's not, it doesn't matter where somebody comes from. We all laugh and we get that together. And sometimes we get the joke together. Sometimes we don't get the joke together, depending on what it's about. But, that aspect, and I really appreciate that. And, happy to get involved. And in fact, I'm kind of blessed to do one of the keynotes at this event coming up here in a few months. And what's exciting is I'm going to be talking about finding joy in the middle of suffering, right? With a wife who's been chronically ill for over 30 years, and really how humor has played a big role in our lives. And we're very excited about that, to really share that with people. So I'm going to put this question out so anybody can grab this one. So what's healthy humor, right? What is it? I mean, what's unhealthy humor, I guess? Maybe you can start from there even, right?
You know what? I'm going to share an unhealthy humor and then tell you. So humor is the greatest connector in the world. It is also a weapon. And I actually lost a friend when I was in college because of a joke she told. And I'm not going to repeat the joke, but it was so horrific that I thought, if they can tell that joke and laugh about it, I can't be friends with them, because it was putting down a whole entire people, and it didn't go. But when you do share humor, and it doesn't even have to be a joke, it can be a cartoon that you share with somebody. My mom started when one Mother's Day, everybody got an envelope, and it was Mother's Day actually, and we were celebrating her, but she gave every one of us, the kids, the spouses, everybody, an envelope, and in it was a cartoon. And she had actually cut these cartoons out of the newspaper, and every cartoon was perfect for each person. It was like so apropos, and we shared them, and we all laughed, and yeah, that's you got us. But the power of humor is when you utilize it to connect people, to bring people in, and to, unlike, unfortunately, Joyce, what you had when you're growing up is to include everybody in on it. So.
Well, that's awesome. So Karyn, I hear that you're the world's first neurohumorist, whatever that means. Sure, you might know what healthy humor, healthy, somehow comes together, right?
Your favorite neurohumorist. That's because I am your only neurohumorist. But anyway, and there is healthy humor, and then a slight tangent from that, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but there's also therapeutic humor. Healthy humor is, I think, any kind of humor that results in something that makes somebody feel better physically, psychologically, socially, spiritually, the humor that makes people have some kind of a positive benefit in all of those worlds. It doesn't have to even be intentionally done. If it was humor that was experienced, even if it was by accident, then that is a healthy humor. In AATH, we talk about therapeutic humor, and we've really been delving into this over the decades, and our friend and colleague, Steve Saltman, who is a psychologist, has really helped kind of pin this down. And with therapeutic humor, there is an intentionality, and there is also that the person who is the recipient of the humor recognizes that there was a benefit. And so it's a slight nuance, but for those of us who really geek out on this and want to go deeper, that's kind of the difference. But one of the things that I would love for the viewers today to come away with is that humor, when it happens by chance, is wonderful, but humor by choice can take their benefits up a quantum leap, because now with that intentionality and with consistency, they're going to start seeing the benefits on a regular basis and see more of those benefits. Do any of my colleagues want to jump in on that?
Yes,
Sue?
I do. So thinking about the brain and our neural pathways, exactly as you're saying, we begin to have filters, and we just identify humor. I now notice I see humor. I see humor everywhere. I have a lens of humor that I never had before. And so I now look at the world, and I see healthy humor as the way when positive psychology came into the world, instead of thinking, why was somebody sick? And what was wrong with something, we now say what was right with it, what worked. And I attend the conferences for positive psychology, and I just loved when I went last time, and we talked about in the future about healthy humor and how we think about joy and savoring and the beauty of the world. I'm a photographer, so I'm always looking for what is that joy? How can I connect people to nature? So there's a lot of positive, connecting, beautiful benefits when we look at humor from a positive lens and a healthy lens.
Well, Sue, since you're kind of talking about this, how about share a time when you personally used humor to navigate an illness or trauma, something that impacted you, your family, that you used humor to help you kind of get through it from that healthy standpoint, right?
Well, my mum had Alzheimer's, so thinking about our mums today, and she, when she was kind of at later stages and she'd lost the power of language, I would take her on walks, and we would laugh about the different colors of flowers and the different bugs that would go in the flowers. And then I learned to hum, because by then words were not that, didn't really resonate with her, but still the power, the deep in the brain, music is the last remaining place where we can bring people to life. So we would hum. We go, how much is that doggy in the window? And then I go, and we would hum and hum, and then she would come alive and hum with me. So we were known as the humming duo.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So anybody else have a moment where, where they used humor to really get through a traumatic experience? Just jump right in, please.
I don't want to dominate, but
Yeah, go ahead, Roberta.
well, like I explained with my dad. So my dad was the starter of a rare disease, and my brother, myself, and I passed it on to my son. We all have it, and basically we live with it all the time, but we have to use humor. So we use humor. So we use humor to cope with the way our bodies are, because I've had 2 major surgeries, and I had my colon and my rectum removed. And for about almost 3 months, I had an ileostomy, but I'm allergic to tape, so it wouldn't stick on me. So I probably had the worst time of my entire life was trying to deal with an ileostomy that wouldn't stay on. So there was a lot of poop jokes. And we deal with it in that way. We utilize it because if you can't change something, if you can find the humor in it, you can deal with it so much easier. It's not going to change what you're dealing with, but it's going to make it so much easier, and it's going to make it easier on the people around you. So we use a lot of humor around body functions and sounds and the way things work now. I don't have an ileostomy anymore. I have what's called a J pouch, but it's an internal bag. But I still know where every bathroom is everywhere.
Well, you think about that, really that aspect of, I can think about a gallows humor or something along those lines where whatever, with invisible disabilities, right? There's so many people living with chronic illness where they get it and they have, some things you gotta laugh. Oh my goodness. What my wife and I go through sometimes, it's the invariable when the doctor says, well, that can't happen. And you're thinking, it did. How could you say it can't happen? It did. And you're like, you just got to laugh through these things. You're like, that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. What do you mean it can't happen? It's like, but that happens a lot, I've thought about writing a book someday with Karyn. We've talked about this, where one page would be from the patient's perspective about the doctors, and one page would be from the doctor's perspective about the patients. Because why do you think they call them patients? Because the doctor's practicing on them, right? It's like, but that whole aspect of, whatever kind of work you do, there's always a humor that's tied to it's the inside joke kind of thing, right? So Joyce,
John Callahan, in his books, there's nobody who covered what you're talking about more fabulously than John Callahan. Now, I just wanted to say, having not had what I would consider a trauma that I dealt with humor, and I guess I've just led too happy of a life, but I think that every day as we get older, we recognize the power of humor as an equalizer. And I know whenever I just gave a talk yesterday on the joys of being chronologically endowed. And when I talk to people about keeping my underwear, the bras and underpants rolled up in the vanity so that I don't have to walk past a mirror undressed when I come out of the shower, people my age understand this. They get it. They get it. And we all have something that's imperfect about our bodies. We all have something that's imperfect about the stuff we've done or how much are we cleaning the house. There are so many little flaws that are not traumatic, but they do impact your daily life and also what other people think about you. And I think that humor is the greatest way to bridge that gap between people up here and people down here in whatever the area is, whether it's an illness, whether it's an intellectual problem, whether it's a financial problem. In the end, we are all people and we are meant to laugh together.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that's one of the things that Invisible Disposed we talk about is everybody has value, right? Even somebody may have an illness, somebody may have a disability. It doesn't matter what it is. We all are valued the same. And we need to stop thinking that people are lesser because of these things, right? But you're right. If you look about it, there are people who, their lives are so full of trauma and tragedy, not that they asked for it. And sometimes they're the funniest people you know. I mean, they are just so full of humor because it is that coping mechanism. It's that, as Karyn, you talk about oxytocin, there's all these, wonderful things that happen as well. And it's like, how could you not cope with this? That's the only way you can, right? Is to kind of work into that. So as I kind of think about, healthy humor in think about it in the workplace or the personal life and how, what's some advice you guys, you might give that says, here's a way you can use humor. You talked about seeing humor. We talked about don't use humor to knock somebody down. I mean, you talked about that, Roberta, right? How we use it as a weapon. But so what's some, a practical example of how you can use healthy humor to benefit somebody, to make maybe their life's a little bit better, maybe their business life's a little bit better. What would that be? Anybody?
Go ahead,
I'm happy
Karyn.
to, I'll jump in, and I know that my colleagues here have lots of ideas and thoughts as well. I think the first thing that I would recommend to anybody, whether it's for your personal life or your professional life, is to start rewiring your brain, to start intentionally and consistently looking for the humor around you. Sue said it so beautifully earlier that she now sees humor all the time, and I see humor every day. Some people will say to me, but you don't understand, there's nothing funny happening in my life. And there are people who have a lot of tragedy, but the fact is that the humor is still around. It's just that you're not like Roberta said, you're not wearing the lens. And if you start intentionally asking yourself, what am I missing? And don't give up. If you don't see something right away, because if that's your belief, that's your reality. But once you start believing there's got to be something funny here, then you'll see something and neurons are going to fire. And the next time it'll happen a little sooner and the neurons are going to fire again. And you're going to start rewiring your brain. Hebb's law, neurons fire together, wire together. And your brain will start showing you humor on a regular basis. Things people say, signs that you see. I was in a dressing room not too long ago trying on a pair of jeans. And the woman in the dressing room beside me apparently was trying on a dress. I never saw her, but I heard her say, "Oh, hon, if this dress fit me any tighter, it would fit me like a mammogram." I had to stop putting on my jeans. I had to reach into my bag and I wrote that down on a piece of paper. I forgot about it. It wasn't until a week later that I found the piece of paper. So that's another thing there's a lot of humor that's happening that escapes you. And you think about it for a fleeting moment, but because you haven't brought it to an intentionally conscious level, you're not going to be able to leverage it as much.
It's interesting. You talk about looking for it. As I'm preparing for my keynote in front of all these amazing speakers and everything, talking about humor, as I'm going through my life and looking at those moments where humor played such an important, it's like, and I am writing them down too, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to miss it. And then I'll just be driving or whatever else, and one of them will pop. I'm like, oh my goodness, that I've got to use that. And then somehow I find the audio clip or the video or whatever, and it is, but you're right, it's intentional. I've got to find these things. And then when you find them, then you have a great laugh and everybody's like, oh yeah, that was really funny.
So dovetailing on what Karyn said, I tell people to do a humor journal, keep it going all the time. And I did that. So my mom went into a skilled nursing facility and it was pretty horrific for all of us as she started to kind of say things that were pretty bizarre after a while. I started a humor log on my mom, my mom's humor log. Well, like I said, my mom just passed away, and at her eulogy, I let my brother go first because I knew he was going to speak about all her assets and the great things. And I knew that I had to come in and share that humor log that I had. And I did. I shared the humor that I found with her and that I laughed with her in the last parts of her life. And people came up to me afterwards and thanked me for that. They said, we needed to know that part of your mom, and we loved your mom's laugh and her wit, and that part just shined. So, you can use humor all in places to really help you start your grief as well.
Yeah, Sue, as I think about, you do a lot of coaching and those things, what do you, as you're coaching somebody and talking them through how to really move to that next level in their personal and business life, using humor to do it?
Yeah, I'm an executive coach and I love coaching. So I facilitated a program on brain-based coaching. And in that, when I first did it, it was a bit harsh and a bit serious. And over the years, I began to, as you said, find things that were relevant between humor and coaching and trying to find those stories that I could share. And I was so happy that people would put in their testimonials, Sue helped me remember. She taught me how to embed all of the concepts and theories in my brain by using humor and emotion and storytelling to bring it to life. And so for me, that was so important that then I decided with my colleague, Karyn Buxman, we co-authored a paper, Humor and Coaching. It just came out last year, was it? I think so. And in the paper, we surveyed coaches. We surveyed over 150 different coaches, and we asked them a lot of questions about what was appropriate, what were their challenges in using humor in coaching, and what worked. Again, what worked. And of the 150, 83% said that they use skills, but it's about appropriateness of skills. It's about using humor appropriately, and that it was important or very important for coaches. But yet, when you begin to work with coaches, they get a bit nervous that they'll lose their professionalism or their credibility. So we bring up ideas on how, like, for example, I always start coaching with a little bit of self-deprecation. So that, again, that equalizer, because a coach often comes in with higher status. And so it's very important to try to equalize your level with whoever you're coaching. And using humor, you can do that really well.
Yeah, kind of impacts that seriousness of life, right? You know,
Yes.
everybody's so tense and like, and then just one good word that's humorous that works, and all of a sudden the whole room is just like, all the anxiety just went away like that fast. You know, it's just pretty amazing. So,
I think Joyce was going to chime in too.
yeah, please, Joyce.
Tension breaker in the world than left, and it hardly matters some of the time what it's about. I will tell you one of my finest pieces of advice is, and I don't care how old the person is we've got to train people to get rid of the energy suckers in their lives. And when I tell people that the most important thing you can do with your life is to surround yourself with positive people, and for the coaches to recommend to their people, you need to make the people that are around you recognize how important that positivity is. It's always there. As we say, there is always a humorous underside to whatever is going on. And there's got to be a way to help people lighten up, because the energy suckers will kill you. And it's not a joke.
Yeah, you know, I think about that, how humor is not designed to make what you're going through non-existent, or like it didn't matter, right? What humor does is brings that little bit of levity into there to just to take a little bit of that intensity out of it, right? To allow the emotions to break through, because you know we're trying to hold everything in because it's so traumatic, or what people are going through is a difficult time, and that humor just brings that light bounce into it, right? You know, it's
let the light in, Wayne. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's letting the light in, bringing
Oh, I
humor,
love it.
whatever the situation is going to let the light in.
No, that's awesome.
And building on that, one of the competencies for the International Coach Federation is about lightness and energy. They define humor in lightness and energy, because coaches go, well, how do I use it? And just say, bring some lightness. Whenever the situation or the conversation is heavy, or the client that you're working with has some real difficult challenges, find a way to just bring that levity and just bring it back up, because you cannot be anxious and laugh at the same time. You know, that anxiety, if we can try and tip the balance and the threats that come in, and just try and tip it so that we have all those endorphins and serotonin and oxytocin flowing and all these wonderful neurochemicals that keep us all positive and healthy.
And by the way, just as an aside, you can't be depressed and eat an ice cream cone at the same time either.
That's pretty funny. Because that's funny, because last night I was sitting there at the couch and I was like, man, I don't know what, I want a snack. And then I remembered, because I just got over COVID a few weeks ago, I'm like, I think we have popsicles still. So I'm like, do we still have popsicles? And my wife's like, yes, we do. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. I mean, I haven't eaten popsicles hardly since I was a kid, but it was like during COVID, I need a popsicle, right? Dealing with all that. So I want to, just one more quick question here, and then we're gonna wrap this up here. But you know, around the aspect of some people feel like, you know, do I need to be the comedian? Do I need to be the class clown? Do I, you know, I don't have a sense of humor at all. You know, I don't want to, you know, offend people, all that intensity. So it's like, I don't know how to be humorous, or how to be funny, or how to do that. So somebody want to jump in and just say, you know, what you guys have found out that maybe you don't have to be all those things.
You know, I think one of the biggest epiphanies that I had over my career was that there were multiple purposes of using humor. And we tend to think that the purpose of humor is to entertain the other person and to make them laugh. And if that's the case, we measure our success in how much we can make them laugh. But the other purposes that I recognized were influence. You know, if we're coaching, if we're trying to motivate, educate, persuade somebody else, we're not measuring the success in how much we make them laugh. And particularly with healthy humor, when somebody is in chronic pain, or somebody is feeling isolated or depressed, and they have the unseen disabilities that other people look upon and don't understand because they don't really know what this person is going through. when you're using humor for well-being, again, we're not recognizing the success by how much we make that person laugh. So you don't have to be funny. You know, as we say, we want to see funny, not be funny. We want to be the humor appreciator. You don't have to be the humor initiator. And to use this humor to build the bonds, to strengthen the relationships when you feel isolated, to divert your attention when you're in chronic pain, to reframe the situation when you're feeling depressed, to refuel yourself when you have been in overwhelm and just going without a respite. And so, you know, to use this humor in these ways, I think is just incredibly important. And you know, people just often overlook the power of humor to help them in these situations.
Awesome. Anyone else? One more?
I agree with what Karyn said. And a lot of times, if you're going into a situation where you know that you're going to be stressed out, you know that the person that you're going to talk to doesn't quite react the way that you wish you could get them to react. And your stress level starts to rise as you start to think about having to deal with that and go in. Sometimes you use the humor before that so that it takes your, you know, lowers your blood pressure, it calms you down, and it can be anything. Because in my program, Laughter for the Health of It, I teach people how to see the humor when the comedian goes home. So you need to utilize humor and find it in everything that you do. And if you can do something that you know, even just a simple aha, just telling yourself ah and ha and do it enough so that you're laughing, and you can laugh at anything. You can go into that situation. You're not going to change another person. The best psychiatrist can't do that, but you can change your reaction to that person. And when you laugh, you lower your blood pressure, you calm yourself down, and you're able to deal with the situation in the best way you can and less damage to your body, and get out of there so that you can go on and do something fun and that you enjoy.
Yes,
And
Sue,
by
you
the
had something?
I was just going to say that you're talking about stress there, Roberta. I had a time in my life where I had a 9-year period of chronic stress. And I got very sick, and that's why I'm a brain nerd today, because I began studying all about the brain. And I realized that, so for example, one of the first things I did was I went and got a dog. And people said, why'd you go and get a dog? And I went, well, I needed something, both exercise and lighten. And then I had a dog naming party. I thought, I need people, I need humor. So I had a dog naming party, and people came up with craziest names. So we practiced running down the beach, calling to my dog, calling it the strangest of things. But it was my way of dealing with this very, very horrible diagnosis, and how was I going to cope with it? And that's when I began to really use humor and ask people to send me humor and just build ideas of how to help myself get through that period of intense stress. And I like the Oscar Wilde quote, which you may have heard, but luckily I didn't learn it too late. But he said, life is too important to be taken seriously. And I had taken all those 9 years way too serious. And if I'd only learned and joined AATH earlier, then perhaps that would never have happened.
Okay,
Well, that's a good wrap
thing.
up here.
Other hand, Wayne.
Okay, go ahead, please, Joyce.
I just wanted to add, because I know we don't have to be comedians, and for instance, I am not a comedian, but there is nothing wrong with breaking the tension in a situation by having a quick joke or a funny quote. And I find that I am often in groups of people who have gotten just so serious about things that we can't change, things going on in the world, horrifying things going on in the news, and we can't change that. But what we can change is that moment in time that we have together. And sometimes just one little quick joke or statement can alter that so that all of us are laughing, and then we can go on and deal with what we can.
No, I think that's fantastic. I know that a compliment I got from Karyn sometimes, she said, I actually have pretty good comedic timing, which is good. And I love to do that too, right? To really, to just bring some levity to it, to just try to diffuse the seriousness of it. Understanding it is serious, right? And that's the point, right? What we're going through when we're living with disability and illness and those things, those are tough times, right? But there's so many benefits we can look at in humor. And And I'm so glad that we got together on this to really talk about this. And this is just the start of this journey on the healthy humor ideas here at Invisible Disabilities. One of the things is you can learn more about AATH. You can go to AATH.org. We should have this video up before the conference, and so we want people to go to the conference there. You can learn all about it there. Here in
Join
Denver.
us.
What now?
I'm just saying, everybody
in
join us.
Denver.
The Curtis Hotel is so fun. This is going to be just a blast. Please.
Right.
join us.
April 4th through 7th.
Oh my, you're all amazing. So I want to know, let's just go my Hollywood Squares, if anybody gets that reference. Roberta, how can people find out about you?
Well, right here, they can go to Laugh for You, LAF, the letter. Sometimes I'm a speaker, sometimes I don't. LAF, the number 4, the letter U.com. And you can also sign up for my free newsletter that I send out every Friday. It's free.
Awesome. Joyce, where can we get a hold of you?
They can get all of me on YouTube if they like stories about sex that are funny, obviously. Or they can come to my email at Kopisalt, KOPISALT @AOL.com. That's how old I am. I still have AOL. And I answer my emails every day.
Awesome. Thank you. Sue.
Yep, I run a business which is called Lifted Fog. Again, that lifting up, trying to clear, help people get clarity. So Lifted Fog, remember fog, that foggy stuff, .com. And I'm building a new area called liftedfoghumor.com.
Awesome. And Karyn, how can we get a hold of you?
I am wildly identifiable, I think I would say. And, I'm on every social media platform. I also put out something to rewire your brain every week called Humor Habits, humorhabits.com, if people are interested in rewiring their brain for humor. And you can email me at KarynandKarynBuxman.com, and I would be happy to answer any additional questions or schedule a cup of virtual coffee with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today on our first ever Healthy Humor Ideas show, and many more to come.
Yes.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.